Question 1. A new software development project is underway using an Agile approach. During a sprint review, a key stakeholder expresses dissatisfaction with a recently delivered feature, stating it doesn't align with their current market needs, which have significantly shifted since the project began. The project manager confirms the feature was developed exactly according to the user story accepted in a previous iteration. What is the most appropriate action for the project manager to take next? A. Explain that the feature met the approved user story and therefore is complete, advising the stakeholder to submit a new change request for future sprints. B. Initiate a formal change control process to update the project scope baseline, documenting the stakeholder's new requirements. C. Facilitate a discussion with the product owner and relevant stakeholders to refine the product backlog, reprioritizing or adding new user stories to reflect the evolving needs. D. Immediately halt development on current sprint tasks to address the stakeholders' immediate dissatisfaction by modifying the feature. Answer: C. Facilitate a discussion with the product owner and relevant stakeholders to refine the product backlog, reprioritizing or adding new user stories to reflect the evolving needs. In an Agile environment, scope is managed through progressive elaboration, where the product backlog is continuously refined to reflect evolving needs and market changes. The core concept here is adaptive planning and managing emergent requirements through the product backlog. Since the feature met the previously agreed upon user story, it was correctly delivered according to the agreed scope at that time, but the context has shifted. The most appropriate response is to address the changing needs by involving the product owner and stakeholders in refining the backlog, ensuring future work aligns with current priorities, rather than rigidly adhering to old requirements or immediately making an unprioritized change. This approach embraces flexibility and continuous value delivery, which is key to Agile success. Question 2. A project manager is leading a project to develop a new e-commerce platform. During the define scope process, the team identifies several potential features that would be highly beneficial but are not explicitly requested by the primary stakeholders and would significantly increase project cost and duration. The project manager has already collected all known requirements. What should the project manager do regarding these additional features? A. Include them in the project scope, as they will add significant value to the final product and improve user experience. B. Document them in a separate, out-of-scope, list or future considerations, and proceed with the defined scope. C. Present them to the primary stakeholders immediately for approval to incorporate them into the current project scope. D. Create a separate mini-project to develop these features in parallel, using a dedicated small team. Answer: B. Document them in a separate, out-of-scope, list or future considerations, and proceed with the defined scope. Defining scope involves clearly delineating what is and is not included in the project deliverables and work. The core concept here is scope definition and preventing scope creep, which is the uncontrolled expansion of product or project scope without adjustments to time, cost, and resources. Even if features seem beneficial, if they are not explicitly requested by primary stakeholders and significantly impact cost/duration, they should be excluded from the current project scope. Documenting them for future consideration is a pragmatic way to acknowledge their potential value without causing unauthorized scope expansion. This ensures the project stays focused on delivering the agreed-upon objectives within its constraints. Question 3. A project team is in the process of creating the work breakdown structure, WBS, for a complex infrastructure project. The project manager notices that one work package, foundation construction, is still too broadly defined, making it difficult to assign to a single responsible party and estimate accurately. What action should the project manager take to address this specific issue? A. Elevate foundation construction to a control account to monitor its progress at a higher level. B. Decompose foundation construction into smaller, more manageable work packages or activities. C. Reassign foundation construction to an external contractor specializing in complex foundation work. D. Conduct a requirements gathering session with the customer to clarify the specifics of the foundation work. Answer, B. Decompose foundation construction into smaller, more manageable work packages or activities. The core concept of creating a WBS is decomposition, which involves breaking down the project scope and project deliverables into smaller, more manageable components. If a work package is too broadly defined, it fails to provide the necessary level of detail for effective planning, estimating, executing, and controlling. Decomposing it further into smaller work packages or even activities makes it possible to assign clear responsibilities, create accurate estimates, and better manage the work. This ensures that all elements of the project scope are clearly defined down to the work package level, providing a solid foundation for the project plan. Question 4. During the validate scope process, the project manager presents the completed prototype of a new mobile application to the key stakeholders. The stakeholders provide feedback that the user interface, while functional, does not meet their aesthetic expectations and request significant redesigns. The approved scope baseline only specified functionality and general usability, not specific aesthetic guidelines. What is the project manager's most appropriate course of action? A. Accept the feedback as a legitimate part of the scope and instruct the team to begin the redesign immediately. B. Inform the stakeholders that the aesthetic requirements were not part of the approved scope and therefore cannot be addressed. C. Document the feedback, explain that it represents a change to the scope baseline, and initiate the change control process. D. Conduct a meeting with the development team to determine if the redesign can be done without impacting the project schedule or budget. Answer, C. Document the feedback, explain that it represents a change to the scope baseline, and initiate the change control process. The validate scope process is where formal acceptance of the completed project deliverables is obtained from the customer or stakeholders. The core concept here is managing changes to the scope baseline, which is a key component of the project management plan. Since the aesthetic expectations were not part of the initially approved scope, any request for significant redesign constitutes a change. Ignoring it or immediately implementing it without formal approval bypasses proper change control. The project manager must document the request, explain its impact as a scope change, and follow the defined change control process to formally evaluate, approve, or reject the request, ensuring transparency and control. Question 5. A project manager is working on a complex project that has recently received approval for a major scope change. This change impacts several components of the product and requires significant adjustments to the project schedule and budget. What document is most crucial for the project manager to update immediately after the change request is approved? A. Project Charter. B. Stakeholder Register. C. Scope Baseline. D. Risk Management Plan. Answer, C. Scope Baseline. The scope baseline is a critical component of the project management plan, comprising the scope statement, WBS, and WBS dictionary. When a major scope change is approved, it directly alters what the project is delivering. Therefore, the core concept here is the integrity of the performance measurement baselines, and updating the scope baseline ensures that all future planning, execution, and monitoring activities are aligned with the new, approved scope. This update provides a clear, official record of the revised project scope, serving as the foundation for measuring project performance and controlling future changes. Question 6. A project manager discovers that a team member, with good intentions, has added a minor, unapproved feature to a deliverable, believing it would enhance customer satisfaction. The feature was not part of the defined scope or any approved change requests. What process has been circumvented, and what is the most immediate concern for the project manager? A. Validate scope. The concern is the project's ability to achieve formal acceptance. B. Control quality. The concern is the deliverable may not meet quality standards. C. Control scope. The concern is that this represents unauthorized scope creep. D. Plan scope management. The concern is that the scope management plan was not followed. Answer, C. Control scope. The concern is that this represents unauthorized scope creep. The control scope process is about monitoring the status of the project and product scope and managing changes to the scope baseline. The core concept being tested is preventing scope creep, which is the uncontrolled expansion of product or project scope without adjustments to time, cost, and resources. When a team member adds an unapproved feature, even with good intentions, it constitutes unauthorized work outside the defined scope, directly undermining the control scope process. The immediate concern is the unauthorized addition of work, which can lead to cost overruns, schedule delays, and resource misallocation if not promptly addressed and managed through the change control process. Question 7. A project manager is defining the scope for a new product development. The project involves multiple stakeholders with conflicting needs and ambiguous requirements. To achieve a comprehensive and shared understanding of the product scope, which technique would be most effective in this situation? A. Expert judgment. B. Brainstorming. C. Prototyping. D. Nominal group technique. Answer: C. Prototyping. When dealing with ambiguous or conflicting requirements, especially in product development, prototyping is a highly effective technique for defining scope. The core concept here is clarifying requirements through visual and interactive models. Prototyping allows stakeholders to see a working model of the product or feature, experiment with it, and provide tangible feedback, thereby clarifying their needs and resolving ambiguities much more effectively than abstract discussions or textual descriptions. This hands-on approach reduces misinterpretations and ensures a shared understanding of what the final product should look like and how it should function. Question 8. In an Agile project, the product backlog is continuously refined. Who is primarily responsible for making sure the product backlog is prioritized and contains enough detail for the development team to proceed? A. The project manager. B. The Scrum Master. C. The product owner. D. The lead developer. Answer: C. The product owner. In an Agile project, the product owner is the individual primarily responsible for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the development team. The core concept here is the product owner's role in managing the product backlog. This includes clearly expressing product backlog items, ordering the items to best achieve goals and missions, and ensuring the product backlog is visible, transparent, and clear to all, and shows what the Scrum team will work on next. They are the voice of the customer and the business, ensuring the team builds the right product by prioritizing based on business value and stakeholder needs. Question 9. A project manager is reviewing a project's performance and notes that several approved changes have been implemented over the past few months, leading to slight delays and budget increases. To ensure that the original objectives are still achievable and that the project remains aligned with stakeholder expectations, which document should the project manager refer to for the overall project context and strategic alignment? A. Work Breakdown Structure, WBS. B. Project Charter. C. Requirements Traceability Matrix. D. Scope Statement. Answer: B. Project Charter. The project charter is a high-level document that formally authorizes the existence of a project and provides the project manager with the authority to apply organizational resources to project activities. The core concept here is the foundational nature of the project charter, which defines the project's purpose, high-level objectives, success criteria, and identifies key stakeholders. While the scope statement details the project deliverables, the project charter provides the broader context and links the project to the strategic objectives of the organization. After multiple changes, consulting the charter helps ensure the project is still strategically viable and meeting its original high-level intent. Question 10. A project manager is preparing for the validate scope process for a recently completed project phase. What is the primary output of this process? A. Accepted deliverables. B. Work performance information. C. Change requests. D. Verified deliverables. Answer: A. Accepted deliverables. The validate scope process is the formal acceptance of the completed project deliverables by the customer or stakeholders. The core concept here is obtaining formal sign-off for deliverables. While other elements like work performance information might be inputs and change requests might be outputs if deliverables are not accepted, the primary and desired output is the official acceptance of the deliverables by the relevant stakeholders. This formal acceptance confirms that the deliverables meet the specified requirements and are ready for transition or further project phases. Question 11. During the collect requirements process for a new IT system, the project manager encounters a situation where different user departments provide conflicting needs for the same feature. Which data analysis technique would be most suitable to help resolve these conflicting requirements and achieve consensus? A. Alternatives analysis. B. Root cause analysis. C. Decision-making, example multi-criteria decision analysis. D. Variance analysis. Answer: C. Decision-making, example multi-criteria decision analysis. When faced with conflicting requirements, particularly from diverse stakeholders, decision-making techniques are essential to achieve consensus and prioritize needs. The core concept here is conflict resolution and prioritization in requirements collection. Multi-criteria decision analysis, MCDA, for example, allows for evaluating options against various criteria, example cost, benefit, risk, stakeholder priority, to arrive at a balanced decision that addresses the most critical needs while managing trade-offs. This structured approach helps stakeholders weigh different aspects objectively and reach a mutually agreeable solution, resolving the conflict. Question 12. A new project manager takes over a project mid-execution. Reviewing the project documentation, they find that the project scope statement is extremely high-level and lacks detailed descriptions of deliverables and product acceptance criteria. The project has already experienced several misunderstandings with stakeholders regarding expected outcomes. What is the best immediate action for the project manager regarding the scope definition? A. Create a detailed work breakdown structure, WBS, based on the high-level scope statement. B. Schedule a meeting with key stakeholders to refine and elaborate on the requirements and acceptance criteria. C. Submit a change request to formally update the project scope statement with more detail. D. Proceed with execution, relying on the team's interpretation, and address issues as they arise. Answer: B. Schedule a meeting with key stakeholders to refine and elaborate on the requirements and acceptance criteria. A high-level scope statement that lacks detail and acceptance criteria is a significant risk, especially if misunderstandings have already occurred. The core concept here is the iterative and collaborative nature of defining scope and collecting requirements. Before creating a WBS or submitting a change request, the project manager must first get a shared understanding of the detailed scope and acceptance criteria from the key stakeholders. A dedicated meeting to elaborate on requirements and acceptance criteria is essential to prevent further misunderstandings and ensure the project builds the right product. Question 13. In an organization that primarily uses a predictive approach, a project manager is planning the scope for a project with many interdependencies. Which of the following is an input to the Create WBS process that ensures the decomposition aligns with the project's strategic and business objectives? A. Requirements documentation. B. Enterprise environmental factors. C. Organizational process assets. D. Project scope statement. Answer: D. Project scope statement. The project scope statement provides a detailed description of the project deliverables, the major deliverables, assumptions, and constraints. When creating the WBS, the core concept is ensuring that the decomposition of work is directly derived from and completely encompasses the agreed-upon project scope. The project scope statement serves as the authoritative source for defining the project boundaries and what needs to be delivered, ensuring that every work package in the WBS directly contributes to fulfilling the project's objectives as outlined in the scope statement. This prevents extraneous work and ensures all necessary work is included. Question 14. A project manager is working on a construction project. A new government regulation is published mid-project, requiring a specific type of environmental assessment that was not part of the original project scope. This assessment will require additional time and resources. What should the project manager do first? A. Inform the client that this is an external change and will require additional funding and schedule extension. B. Assess the impact of the new regulation on the project objectives, scope, schedule, and cost. C. Issue a formal change request to add the environmental assessment to the project scope. D. Temporarily halt project work until the implications of the new regulation are fully understood. Answer: B. Assess the impact of the new regulation on the project objectives, scope, schedule, and cost. When an external factor like a new regulation impacts a project, the immediate and most crucial step is to understand its full implications before taking any other action. The core concept here is proactive change management and impact analysis. Without a thorough assessment of the impact on objectives, scope, schedule, and cost, the project manager cannot make informed decisions, communicate effectively with stakeholders, or properly initiate a change request. This assessment provides the necessary data to justify any required adjustments and follow the appropriate change control process. Question 15. The project manager is using a product backlog to manage scope on an Agile project. During a routine backlog refinement session, it becomes clear that a previously prioritized user story no longer aligns with the evolving business strategy. What action should the project manager and product owner collaboratively take regarding this user story? A. Immediately remove the user story from the backlog as it is no longer relevant. B. Move the user story to a future considerations list for potential reevaluation later. C. Discuss with stakeholders to validate the strategic shift and determine if the user story should be deprioritized, modified, or removed. D. Force the development team to complete the user story as originally planned, to avoid replanning effort. Answer: C. Discuss with stakeholders to validate the strategic shift and determine if the user story should be deprioritized, modified, or removed. In Agile projects, continuous refinement of the product backlog is key to managing evolving scope and ensuring ongoing alignment with business value. The core concept here is collaborative scope management and adapting to change. While a user story may no longer align with current strategy, the decision to deprioritize, modify, or remove it should not be unilateral. A discussion with relevant stakeholders, including business representatives and others impacted, is crucial to validate the strategic shift and ensure a shared understanding and agreement on the necessary adjustments to the backlog. This collaborative approach minimizes surprises and ensures the project continues to deliver maximum value. Question 16. A project manager is using a work breakdown structure, WBS, to define the project scope. Which of the following statements about the WBS is true? A. The WBS primarily focuses on the sequence of activities and dependencies. B. The WBS represents 100% of the project scope, including internal, external, and interim deliverables. C. The lowest level of the WBS is the activity, which is then assigned to a team member. D. The WBS is a time-phased budget baseline that identifies planned costs for work packages. Answer: B. The WBS represents 100% of the project scope, including internal, external, and interim deliverables. The work breakdown structure, WBS, is a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work to be carried out by the project team to accomplish project objectives and create the required deliverables. The core concept being tested is the 100% rule of the WBS, meaning that the WBS captures all the work defined in the project scope statement. This rule ensures that all work within the project, whether it's an external deliverable or an internal interim product, is identified and accounted for. This structured approach helps ensure no scope is missed and supports comprehensive planning. Question 17. A project manager is conducting a retrospective meeting for a completed Agile project. One of the key lessons learned is that requirements were often ambiguous, leading to rework and missed expectations. Which document or artifact, if improved in future projects, would best address this issue related to scope definition? A. Project charter. B. Release plan. C. User stories and acceptance criteria. D. Sprint burndown chart. Answer: C. User stories and acceptance criteria. In Agile projects, user stories are the primary means of capturing requirements from the user's perspective, while acceptance criteria define the conditions that must be met for the user story to be considered complete. The core concept here is detailed and testable requirements in an Agile context. Ambiguous requirements directly lead to rework and missed expectations. Improving the clarity and specificity of user stories and, more importantly, ensuring robust and unambiguous acceptance criteria are defined for each, would significantly enhance the understanding of scope and reduce ambiguity in future iterations. Question 18. A project manager is leading a global project with geographically dispersed stakeholders. To ensure that all requirements are effectively collected and documented, despite the distance and potential cultural differences, which tool or technique would be most effective in facilitating a comprehensive and inclusive requirements gathering process? A. Interviews with individual stakeholders. B. Focus groups conducted in major regional hubs. C. Joint application design, JAD, sessions facilitated virtually. D. Questionnaires and surveys distributed globally. Answer: C. Joint application design, JAD, sessions facilitated virtually. Joint application design, JAD, sessions are structured workshops that bring together diverse stakeholders to define and design requirements. When dealing with geographically dispersed teams and stakeholders, facilitating these sessions virtually, perhaps with appropriate technology, is highly effective. The core concept is collaborative requirements gathering in a structured environment. JAD sessions foster immediate interaction, brainstorming, and consensus building, allowing for real-time clarification of requirements and resolution of conflicts more effectively than individual interviews or static surveys. This collaborative approach minimizes misinterpretations and maximizes stakeholder buy-in. Question 19. A project manager is about to conduct the validate scope process. What is the key difference between validate scope and control quality? A. Validate scope focuses on confirming the deliverable meets technical specifications, while control quality focuses on formal acceptance by stakeholders. B. Validate scope is concerned with the correctness of deliverables, while control quality is concerned with stakeholder acceptance. C. Validate scope is the process of getting formal acceptance of deliverables, while control quality is concerned with meeting quality requirements. D. Validate scope is performed by the project team, while control quality is performed by the customer. Answer: C. Validate scope is the process of getting formal acceptance of deliverables, while control quality is concerned with meeting quality requirements. This question tests the understanding of two distinct processes related to deliverables. The core concept is the difference in purpose between validate scope and control quality. Control quality involves inspecting deliverables to determine if they meet the specified quality standards and technical specifications, i.e., are they correct? Validate scope, on the other hand, is the process of obtaining formal acceptance from the customer or sponsors on the completed deliverables, i.e., are they accepted? You can remember this by thinking that quality control is typically internal, done by the project team, while scope validation is external, done by the client/stakeholders. Question 20. The project manager is managing a project using a hybrid approach, combining traditional predictive planning for the core infrastructure and agile methods for specific software modules. During project execution, a stakeholder requests a significant enhancement to one of the software modules, which was not initially planned but could provide significant competitive advantage. What should the project manager do first to manage this request? A. Inform the stakeholder that Agile modules allow for flexibility and will incorporate the enhancement into the next sprint. B. Direct the team to immediately start working on the enhancement to seize the competitive advantage. C. Evaluate the impact of the enhancement on the overall project scope, schedule, and budget, then initiate the change control process if warranted. D. Refer to the project's Agile manifesto principles to justify rapid implementation of the change. Answer: C. Evaluate the impact of the enhancement on the overall project scope, schedule, and budget, then initiate the change control process if warranted. Even in a hybrid project, significant enhancements, especially those providing competitive advantages, require careful consideration of their impact on the entire project. The core concept here is the necessity of impact analysis and controlled change management in a hybrid environment. While Agile portions allow for flexibility, a significant enhancement likely falls outside the current sprint backlog and needs to be assessed against the project's overall baselines. It's crucial to understand how the change affects the overall scope, schedule, and budget before proceeding, and then initiate a formal change request if the impact is substantial, even for Agile components, to ensure proper governance. Question 21. During the planned scope management process, the project manager determines how the project scope will be defined, validated, and controlled. Which of the following is a key output of this process that describes how changes to the scope baseline will be handled? A. Requirements Management Plan. B. Scope Management Plan. C. WBS Dictionary. D. Project Charter. Answer: B. Scope Management Plan. The planned scope management process is where the project manager establishes the guidelines for managing scope throughout the project lifecycle. The core concept is the creation of a comprehensive plan for all scope-related activities. The scope management plan is the key output that details how the scope will be defined, example how the scope statement and WBS will be created, validated, how acceptance will be obtained, and crucially, how scope changes will be controlled. This plan ensures a structured approach to scope management, preventing uncontrolled changes and providing a roadmap for stakeholder engagement in scope decisions. Question 22. A project manager is creating the WBS for a large-scale construction project. The team is struggling to define the lowest level of decomposition for certain components. What criterion defines the lowest level of decomposition in a WBS, known as a work package? A. The level at which individual activities can be assigned to a team member. B. The level at which a deliverable can be produced and verified. C. The level at which cost and duration can be reliably estimated and managed. D. The level at which the work package can be completed within a single reporting period. Answer: C. The level at which cost and duration can be reliably estimated and managed. The lowest level of decomposition in a WBS is the work package. The core concept here is that work packages represent manageable components of work. The appropriate level of decomposition is determined by the point at which the work can be reliably estimated for cost and duration, and then effectively managed and monitored. While individual activities are eventually assigned to team members, and deliverables are produced and verified, the primary driver for decomposing to the work package level is to achieve a level of detail suitable for planning, estimating, and controlling the project's work, providing measurable units of progress. Question 23. A project manager is responsible for managing scope on a project where the customer is uncertain about specific details of the final product and expects to refine requirements iteratively throughout the project. Which approach to scope management would be most suitable in this scenario? A. Create a highly detailed scope statement and WBS upfront, locking down all requirements before execution. B. Utilize progressive elaboration, focusing on defining high-level requirements early and detailing them as the project progresses. C. Implement a strict change control board that rigorously scrutinizes every requested change to minimize scope alterations. D. Delegate scope definition entirely to the technical team, as they are most knowledgeable about implementation details. Answer: B. Utilize progressive elaboration, focusing on defining high-level requirements early and detailing them as the project progresses. When customers are uncertain and expect iterative refinement, progressive elaboration is the most suitable approach to scope management. The core concept here is adapting to evolving requirements. Progressive elaboration involves defining high-level requirements early in the project and then elaborating on them in more detail as the project progresses and more information becomes available. This Agile-friendly approach allows for flexibility, adaptability, and continuous refinement of the product scope in collaboration with the customer, leading to a product that better meets evolving needs. Question 24. During a project's execution phase, a stakeholder approaches the project manager with a request for a new feature that is not in the current scope baseline but is critical for an upcoming business opportunity. The project manager understands the value but is concerned about the impact on the existing schedule. What should be the project manager's next step after receiving this request? A. Inform the stakeholder that the feature is out of scope and cannot be added. B. Add the feature to the project scope and inform the project team to prioritize its development. C. Analyze the requested feature's impact on the project's scope, schedule, cost, quality, and resources, then follow the change control process. D. Escalate the request to the project sponsor for an immediate decision. Answer: C. Analyze the requested feature's impact on the project's scope, schedule, cost, quality, and resources, then follow the change control process. Any request for a new feature not in the scope baseline, even if critical, must be properly managed. The core concept here is integrated change control. Before making any decisions or communicating further, the project manager must thoroughly analyze the potential impact of the requested feature on all project constraints, scope, schedule, cost, quality, and resources. This impact analysis provides the necessary information for the change control board or relevant authority to make an informed decision on whether to approve or reject the change, ensuring that all project aspects are considered. Question 25. A project manager is leading a project to develop a new online learning platform. During the requirements gathering phase, the team identifies a specific feature, example gamification elements, that was mentioned by some users but not prioritized by the core business stakeholders who are funding the project. The project manager needs to decide whether to include it in the initial product scope. Which document is most crucial for guiding this decision regarding inclusion in the scope? A. Business case. B. Project management plan. C. Scope management plan. D. Requirements traceability matrix. Answer: A. Business case. The business case describes the necessary information from a business standpoint to determine if the project is worth the required investment. When deciding whether to include features like gamification elements, even if desired by some users, the core concept is linking project scope to business value and justification. The business case provides the strategic context, business needs, and financial justification for the project, helping to determine if the feature aligns with the overall business objectives and expected benefits, thus guiding the decision on its inclusion in the initial scope. If it doesn't align with the business justification, it should likely be excluded or deferred.